Well, good to be with you. How have folks been today? Everybody doing well this week? It's been a good week? You're blessed? All right. Have you been enjoying the warm weather? Does anybody else besides me think that's weird to have this warm weather in November? It's a little unusual. I like warm weather, but I also like the cool weather. We'll see where this goes for us. Okay, so our sermon title today is Crumbs from the Master's Table. There we are. We're up and going. Oh, and I've got one more thing here. And now I think we're ready to roll. So our text that was read earlier today is from Matthew chapter 15 and verse 21. And it says, "Then Jesus went out from there and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came from that region and cried out to him, saying, 'Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely demon-possessed.' But he answered her not a word. And the disciples came and urged him, saying, 'Send her away, for she cries out after us.'" Jesus had 3.5 years of active ministry. During those 3.5 years, he ministered to the people, preaching, teaching, healing. Let's talk about that just a little bit after prayer. Father, I thank you for your goodness and your mercies. Lord, today I'm a little bit rushed and hurried. Seems to be the nature of this. I thank you for the pattern change that's coming. Lord, I ask that you would guide, that you would use me to clearly explain this message, that we would understand a pattern that you have, that it would be clear in our minds what we should be doing and how we should be doing it. In Jesus' name, amen. So let's begin by looking at this pattern. This is from Matthew chapter 4, verses 24 and 25. "Then his fame went throughout all Syria, and they brought to him all the sick, those who were afflicted with various diseases and torments, those who were demon-possessed, epileptics, paralytics, he healed them. Great multitudes followed him from Galilee, from Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and beyond the Jordan." So you can pick up a pattern here, right? Jesus goes through the area, he teaches, he preaches, he heals many, many, many people. We're told that there's some towns where he went through where when he left, there was no one left who was sick. Everybody had been healed. What an amazing thing. And then here's Matthew 9, verses 35 and 36. "Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in the synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, healing every sickness and every disease among the people. But when he saw the multitudes, he was moved with compassion for them, for they were weary and scattered, like sheep having no shepherd." Again, we see this similar pattern. Jesus is going through the area. He's preaching, he's teaching, he's healing. For anybody who would listen, for anybody who would come, he would deal with them. Matthew 15, verses 29 through 31, "Jesus departed from there, skirted the Sea of Galilee, went up on the mountain, sat down there. The great multitudes came to him, having with them the lame, the blind, the mute, maimed, many others. They laid them down at Jesus' feet. He healed them. So the multitude marveled when they saw the mute speaking, and the maimed made whole, the lame walking, and the blind seeing. And they glorified the God of Israel." It's a beautiful pattern, right? What an amazing God. Why? Why did Jesus spend all of his time doing this? Well, here's one reason. Matthew 9, verse 36. Do you see it up there anywhere? Anybody? Shout it out. What do you see? He was moved with compassion. That's one of the things that motivated him. Here's another one, Matthew 15. We read this one. They glorified God. They marveled at the things they saw, and they glorified God. Yet another reason why Jesus did the things that he did. And here's an even more direct answer. We're reading this from Mark 1, verses 29 through 39. This is a little bit of a longer passage, so stick with me. Now, when they had come out of the synagogue, they entered the house of Simon and Andrew with James and John. Simon's wife's mother lay sick with a fever, and they told him about her at once. So he came and took her by the hand and lifted her up, and immediately the fever left her, and she served them. At evening, when the sun had set, they brought to him all those who were sick, those who were demon-possessed. The whole city gathered together at the door. He healed many who were sick with various diseases and cast out many demons. He didn't allow the demons to speak because they knew him. I'm going to keep reading, but think about the reason why. There's a why answer in here. Now in the morning, having risen long while before daylight, he went out and departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed. Simon and those who were with him searched for him, and when they found him, they said to him, "Everyone is looking for you." But he said to them, "Let us go into the next towns, that I may preach there also, because for this purpose I have come forth." And he was preaching in all their synagogues throughout all Galilee and casting out demons. You saw the why, right? Why did Jesus do the things that he did? Well, number one, he came for that purpose. That's why he came. He came to save us from our sins by dying for us. But he also came to relieve the sin and suffering and to turn hearts to God. Let's shift gears for just a minute. This is from Matthew chapter 10, verses 5 through 8. The previous verses have a listing of who the disciples were, but this is the 12 disciples. These 12 Jesus sent out and commanded them, saying, "Do not go into the way of Galilee. Do not enter the city of the Samaritans, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And as you go, preach, saying, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, raise the dead, cast out demons. Freely you have received, freely give." So he empowered them to do exactly what he had been doing, or very close to what he had been doing. Preach, teach, heal, tell them the kingdom of heaven is at hand, but with some very specific instructions. And sometimes people stumble over these instructions. I'm going to talk with you about it for a minute here. Why wouldn't he want the gospel to go there? To more fully understand this, we have to understand God's plan, or at least a portion of his plan for his people Israel and his plan for his followers today. So 400 years before God brought the children of Israel out of slavery in Egypt, God made a promise to Abraham, a promise that his family would be blessed and that they would be a blessing, that the whole world would be blessed through them. This is from Genesis 12, verses 1 through 3. It's repeated again, by the way, in other places. Now the Lord had said to Abram, this is before he became Abraham, "Get out of your country, from your family, from your father's house, to a land that I will show you. I will make you a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great. You shall be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. I will curse him who curses you. And in all the families, and in you all the families of the earth will be blessed." So how would God bless all the families of earth through one family? Well, you know that answer, right? I'm afraid to cut off part of the top of that picture, but clearly through the birth of his son, Jesus Christ, God blessed the entire world. Through him, he provided this amazing plan of salvation to save everybody directly through the lineage of Abraham. But there's more to it, even more to this. From Isaiah 56, verses 6 and 7. "Also the sons of the foreigner who join themselves to the Lord to serve him and love the name of the Lord to be his servants, everyone who keeps from defiling the Sabbath and holds fast to my covenant, even them I will bring to my holy mountain. I will make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices will be accepted on my altar. For my house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations." That's Isaiah 56, 6 and 7. Now what's interesting is we often think of God in a pattern, especially the God of what you hear people say, well, the God of the Old Testament was this, the God of the Old Testament did that. We often think of God as this God who loves only Israel, and he wants to destroy everyone else. Go in there, kill them all, do whatever the case may be. The reality is, those people that he said to destroy, that was a very small portion of the people in the world. And they were a portion of people that had turned away and were following terrible practices. Amongst those practices, sacrificing children to false gods, right, on an altar, literally burning, killing children, their children. And so there's other reasons there, but it's amongst those reasons that God said, I want you to destroy these people. It's in this place I will give you a home. But more importantly, God had actually designed that anyone who would come and anyone who would choose to worship God and honor God and follow God and do what God said, anyone was welcome. Everyone could come and be part of this pattern. That's what God designed. He designed that God's people were to be a lighthouse, a beacon of truth in a dark world full of sin. That was the original plan. They were supposed to be different. They were supposed to have a specific identity. Their identity was not that they were Jewish or that they had a certain amount of traditions. They were to be people who followed God's plan. Look at this slide pretty carefully here because it's important for us to understand. They were to be a nation, sorry about the missing the B there, that God could bless. God's blessings and his promises always come with conditions. Conditions of obedience. God can bless in amazing ways if we listen to him, but he cannot bless if we do not listen to him. Abraham's family is supposed to be those who listened to God and who obeyed God and who did things God's way. And if they did that, then God would pour out blessings beyond compare, beyond measure. There would be so many blessings that literally people from all over the world would be coming to Israel and they would be saying, I want to know about your God. Your God is so good. Your God is so kind. Your God is so amazing. Your God pours out so many blessings. I want to know about your God. That's what was supposed to happen. But unfortunately, that's not what happened. Instead, they disobeyed. They intermarried. They worshiped idols. Instead of everybody coming to them, they went into the land that God gave them and said, oh, you must have a powerful God because he got overthrown by our God. Well, let's worship him instead. Right? It doesn't even make sense. It's not logical thought process, and yet that's what they did. Because they intermarried, they got off track. And you think, well, I will never get off track. The question is, will your children get off track? Will your grandchildren get off track? Will the generation after that get off track? Are you laying a firm enough foundation that the generations that follow you continue to follow the Lord? That's what needed to happen in order for this to work, and it didn't happen. Abraham did pretty well. Isaac did pretty well too. Jacob, all right. Jacob's sons, mixed bag. You move on down from there and you have people who aren't following God very closely at all. By the time they get into the land of Canaan, they're off in an entirely different place. Generation after generation heading further and further away from God's plan. As we move forward through the history of Israel, we find that Israel followed other gods. It became two nations, Israel and Judah. We don't have a lot of time to talk a lot about this, but the northern 10 tribes, Israel, were conquered by Assyria. The pattern of Assyria when they conquered people was to move them around. So basically, if they came in and they conquered, a city, they would say, okay, this family, you are moving, 200 miles west. And this family, you're moving 300 miles north. And this family, you're moving south, this, whatever the case, and they would relocate, right? And that's what it would be. So that by the time you got done, you didn't know anybody around you. You were relocated amongst a whole bunch of other people that were relocated. And so no one had any power base to overthrow the government. Everybody was all mixed. Their languages were mixed. Their beliefs were mixed. Their customs were mixed. And so they didn't really have any kind of power, and they couldn't overthrow Assyria. At least that was what the plan was. Then after some time later, the southern half, Judah, was conquered by Babylon. Babylon's pattern was a little different. In Babylon, they would come in and they would take the brightest, the fairest young men of the nation. They would take them back to their courts. They would train them how to be a good Babylonian, and then they would in turn lean on them on how to govern the nation that had been conquered, that these young men came from. And they did keep the people intact, though. They didn't mix them up like Assyria did. They generally, outside of those that they pulled out and took to Babylon, they generally kept the people intact where they lived. And that really affects long-term what this looks like by the time we get to where Jesus is. By the time we get to the time of Jesus, there's 3 different regions of what had been Israel. So you have down here in the south, you have Judea. This is the area that was Judah, and some of the other territory was Judah too, but we're not going to really get into that. This area had been Judah, and they were the ones that were conquered by Babylon, and they were mainly still Jewish people in Judah by the time of Jesus. And then way up here in the north, you have Galilee. Also still mainly Jewish people. They're a little bit more mixed than the people of Judea, but they're mainly Jewish people up there in Galilee. And then right in the middle here is Samaria. Now this is the area that had been overthrown by the Assyrians, where everything had been mixed. Nobody unmixed them all. They just stayed mixed and eventually married to whoever was near them, people who lived in their town, and life moved on, and they just continued, and it got more and more convoluted on what heritage do you have, what beliefs do you have, which God do you worship. And that's where Samaria was by the time of Jesus. So that's the 3 different regions. Now, so then we go back to this command that says, these 12 Jesus sent out and commanded them, saying, do not go to the way of the Gentiles, do not enter a city of Samaria, but rather go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Now, when we look at the ministry of Jesus, he ministered mainly in Judea and Galilee, up there in the north and then down in the south. There's these other places around there. There's Phoenicia. Whoops, I moved forward too many here. Okay, here's Phoenicia. I hit the wrong button. Way up there, okay? Not Jewish. Over here is the Decapolis area. Down south here is Perea. These are all areas that are really not Jewish. There are some, because of all the mixing that happened, there are some Jews living amongst those people. But they're not strongly Jewish. Only really Judea and Galilee were strongly Jewish. And when Jesus sent out his 12 disciples, he sent them there to those regions. Now, the plan was to start with Israel. Jesus is having to rebuild everything. When we first look at it, it can appear like Jesus was racist, or he didn't want the gospel to go to people of other nations, and that's not it at all, actually. The plan was to start with Israel. They had the clearest picture of God's plan. It wasn't a fully clear picture of God's plan, and they certainly missed out on the coming of the Son of God, but they had the clearest of any people alive on the earth. They had the clearest picture of God's plan. They, at least in theory, worshiped the true God, and so he had to begin the work with the house of Abraham, or Israel. And so as he's laying the foundations and getting things started here, that's where he starts, and that's where he encouraged his disciples to start. All right. Now, there's some other reasons behind this. There's some theological reasons, partly tied into some of the timelines of Earth's history, but we're not going to take off in that direction today. We're going to focus just on this. So now, after all that background, let's get into our main story. And I promise I'm not going to take terribly long here. Both Matthew 15 and Mark 7 record this. We're going to look at Matthew's version. So open your Bibles with me, if you would, to Matthew 15. Matthew chapter 15. And I'm going to begin reading in verse 21. Matthew 15 and verse 21. This is recorded in Matthew and Mark. In both chapters, or both books, is a very short story. It's not a terribly detailed story, but there's something interesting in this to see. Matthew 15, verse 21. Then Jesus went out from there and departed to the region of Tyre and Sidon. And behold, a woman of Canaan came from that region and cried out to him, saying, "Have mercy on me, O Lord, Son of David. My daughter is severely demon-possessed." So they are up if we were to go back and look at a map, they're up in the region of Phoenicia, which is to the north and to the west of Galilee, way up on the northern part. This is where he's at now. He's traveled way up here into this corner up by the Mediterranean Sea. His normal area is down here in Galilee, further down in Judea. But now he's traveled up from Jerusalem and in Judea, up through Samaria, up through Galilee, and up into Tyre and Sidon, up in that area up there, Phoenicia. All right, so then let's look at let's talk about this for just a minute, I guess. He had been there preaching. He makes this specific trip. Depending on whether you're reading Matthew or Mark, which version you're reading, this woman is identified as either Canaanite, Greek, or Syrophoenician. What's important to understand is that this woman that's here saying, "Have mercy on me," is not Jewish. She's not even partially Jewish. She's a Gentile entirely. Okay? She's different than those Jesus would normally minister to. Now, verse 23. But he answered her not a word, and the disciples came and urged him, saying, "Send her away, for she cries out after us." Now, at first, this sounds harsh. Jesus isn't talking to her. She's crying out, asking for help, and Jesus is not responding. Sometimes it's easy to think, wow, this is not nice. Mark doesn't include this detail, but this woman is likely following them, shouting at them, and the disciples, as we often do today, saw this woman as a distraction and a frustration. Here we all are. We're having a nice time together. You can imagine this thought process, all of us disciples hanging out with Jesus, and here she is bothering us. Why didn't she go somewhere else? I hate it when people bother us. I mean, what do they think? We're here to help them or something? Send her away. She's creating problems. She's giving me a headache with all that incessant whining. Get her out of here. I'll tell you a little quick story. I used to like donuts a lot. I still like donuts, but I can't eat donuts anymore. But I used to like donuts a lot. I used to like them so much that every day I went to the same donut shop and bought donuts. And every day I went to the same donut shop and bought the same donuts every day. It got to the place where, I'd walk in the door and they'd say, "The regular?" Right? They knew what the regular was. They could already pull that out and get that ready for me. And one day I came into my favorite donut shop, and there was 2 new employees there. And I was the only customer in the store, and the employees were talking. And so I stood by the counter politely waiting for them to finish talking, and they continued. And I waited for a little bit, and they continued. And I waited a little bit longer. Pretty soon I'm tapping my fingers on the countertop, and they continue to talk. More people get in line behind me. Pretty soon there's 3, 4, 5 people in line, and they're still busy talking. And I'm going, "Excuse me, hello." Finally I say, "Am I bothering you? Am I interrupting your day? Let's see here. Are you here to sell donuts or are you here to hang out? Which one is this?" Right? Now this is long before I returned my heart to God, and I'm afraid that I said some things a little stronger than what I just said in this sermon. Right? What's the purpose? Why are you here? Am I a distraction? Am I someone bothering you? Or am I the reason why you're here? I'm the customer of the store, after all. I'm the one paying the money that would actually allow the store to be open tomorrow. Wouldn't you like to take some of my money? And so here we are, and the disciples see this woman, and that what they see is they see a distraction. She's whining, she's crying, she's just following us around, and just tell her to get out of here. Driving me nuts. Verse 24. Jesus answered and said, "I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel." I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. He plays along with the disciples here for a couple of minutes is what he's doing, right? He matches their thought process. Here you folks are in the Mediterranean. We're just here to relax and catch some rays. We've had this busy, grueling schedule. We're here to take it easy. We're not here to do anything else. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I can't really help you. I'm really here only for the lost sheep of Israel. It's actually the exact phrase. that he used when he sent out the 12 disciples. I'm only here for the lost sheep of Israel. Verse 25. And then she came and worshiped him, saying, Lord, help me. Lord, help me. I love this verse. Lord, help me. And I want to make a quick appeal here today on this. I've talked with people before, in the church, out of the church, who say to me, it seems like when I pray, God doesn't hear me. I see him answering other people's prayers. I know that he's there and I know that he's real, but he doesn't seem to care about what my concerns are. Whenever I pray, he doesn't do anything. He seems to be helping everybody else around me. Is there something wrong with me? Does God not love me? Sometimes it can feel that way. If you have those feelings and thoughts, I would encourage you along the lines of what this lady said. This is a very simple and humble plea. Lord, help me. Yeah, we can go into some other discussions, but you can. Would you please help me? Verses 26 and 27. But he answered and said, it's not good to take the children's bread and throw it to the little dogs. And she said, yes, Lord, yet even the little dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table. Jesus pushes back just a little bit to test her faith. He basically says what many of the Jewish people thought, perhaps including some of the disciples that are standing right there. You're just a little dog. It's not good for me to take food from the children and throw it to the dogs. I'm here to feed the children, the lost sheep of Israel. You're just a mutt who wandered off from the street. Why should I help you? You can get the thought process. Pretty in line with the Jewish thought process of the day. And her answer is so humble and pleading. Call me a dog if you want. I am nothing. I'm no one, but at least the dogs get some scraps, some crumbs. Just a little bit. You're feeding the children with a feast at the master's table. They're feasting. I'm no one, but could I just have a scrap, a morsel, a crumb? And I love verse 28. Jesus answered and said to her, O woman, great is your faith. Let it be to you as you desire. And her daughter was healed at that very hour. Great is your faith. Now here's something that I want you to understand about this entire thing. From there, the scriptures say that Jesus went back to the Sea of Galilee. So he traveled up from Jerusalem all the way up to the region of Tyre and Sidon, all the way up to the north and west of the entire area that Israel controlled. And then he met this woman, and then they went back south down to the Sea of Galilee. It would have been, of course, much quicker and easier to go directly from Jerusalem up to the Sea of Galilee. But Jesus wasn't interested in quick and easy. He was interested in one woman who had amazing faith and great need. He traveled all of that way just for her. She was the reason why he came. The disciples saw her as an annoying irritation that should be sent away. They didn't realize that she was the reason why they came. She was the purpose, his sole intent. He came to meet her. Yes, she was a Gentile, and the disciples did not yet understand the full gospel commission. She was, in a way, one of the lost sheep of Israel. Listen to me through this. Listen to me through this. Don't get impatient with me. God had intended for Israel to light the world, and that would call many in the world to him. That's what they were supposed to do. She should have found in Israel the light that would have led her to salvation. But they had turned from God and neglected his plan. They had walled themselves off and refused to share the blessings, what blessings he did give them. But that was not to be the pattern for his disciples, and Jesus is trying to make a point for his disciples to understand. He wants them to see this, because in a short period of time, Jesus is going to be taken away. He's going to die. He's going to rise again. He's going to return to heaven. He's no longer going to be with them in person, instead, rather by the Holy Spirit. And he needs them to understand this important principle. They can't act like the Jews had. They can't act like, oh, well, you're just a little dog. You're just nobody. You're nothing. They can't do that. And instead, they're supposed to do it a different way. They're supposed to go to all nations, not just one nation or race or language. God was giving them a feast. He was going to pour out on them a feast. More than they could do. Overflowing, baskets full of blessings overflowing. And their job was to give it to everyone. That's why he wanted to teach them this important lesson. So here's my appeal. Today we are feasting. You and I, we feast. We have so much. But there are still people around us. There are still people around us who would beg for just a little scrap of what you have. I'm not talking about your material goods. You and God wrestle that one out. I'm talking about this spiritual blessing that God is willing to pour out upon you, and that he has been already, and that he would pour out even more if you would but share what you have. So I encourage you, share Jesus with the world around you.